Good afternoon. We're going to start off with a lesson 9 with a quick warm-up. I got 3 tangent questions. We did tangent in the last lesson. I'd like you to find the tangent of these 3 angles. Remember, anytime we're doing this, we want to find the exact value. No decimals, no calculator. You should be able to get these answers, these 2 from the unit circle, and this one you should be able to get from one of your special right triangles. Go ahead and give those a try. All right, the first one, the tangent of 270, the way I'm going to get that is I'm going to use the idea that we learned that tangent is sine over cosine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find the sine of 270 and put it over the cosine of 270. Well, where are those going to come from? They're going to come from the unit circle. So I'm going to need that picture here real quick. 270 is right down here. 270 has coordinates 0, -1. So that means the sine of 270 is your y value, which is -1. The cosine of 270 is 0. So this is going to be -1 over 0, which we call undefined. We can't divide by 0. So the answer to this first question is undefined. And I told you could abbreviate it UND if you'd like. All right, the second one, the tangent of 180, same concept. Going to use the sine of 180 over the cosine of 180. Sine over cosine. Here's 180. 180 has coordinates of -1, 0. So the sine is going to be your y coordinate, which is 0. The cosine is going to be your x coordinate, which is -1. And 0 divided by -1 is just 0. So the tangent of 180 is 0. Now, to do the tangent of 60, you could do the sine of 60 divided by the cosine of 60. But that is not the most efficient way to do it. All right, it is much, much easier when you're dealing with angles that aren't on the unit circle to just use your special right triangles. All right, and go back to SOHCAHTOA. So if I want the tangent of 60, here's 60, here's 30, here's 90. Your sides are 1, 2, and radical 3. Remember, tangent is opposite over adjacent. So all I got to do is go to 60, go opposite, adjacent, radical 3 over 1, and I'm done with that one. So if the angle's not on the unit circle, go ahead and just use your special right triangles. It's much quicker with tangent. All right? Okay, going to start the lesson in a second. Going to get the board erased, and then we'll go from there. So today we're going to focus on where sine, cosine, and tangent are positive and negative depending on what quadrant they're in. And I'm going to teach you a little acronym that will help you remember that. And that's all you're going to be working on for your homework. It's just positives and negatives. All right, so to show you how this works, all right, it'd be helpful if you had your calculator. So if you don't, pause your screen and grab your calculator. If you don't have a calculator, it's okay. I'm going to do it on mine as well and show you. All right, you don't need the calculator for the homework. You just need it to go through these notes. All right, so this is quadrant 1, 2, 3, 4. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to randomly go around and grab some angles from each quadrant and talk about the sine, the cosine, and the tangent of those angles. If you want to follow along with me on the calculator, you need to make sure your calculator is in degree mode. All right. So remember to do that. You hit the mode button, which is right there, and make sure degree is highlighted. All right. So once you have that, we're ready to go. So I'm going to go ahead and just randomly pick an angle in quadrant 1. Let's go with something exciting like 12 degrees, all right? So on my calculator, I'm going to find the sine of 12 degrees, the cosine of 12 degrees, and the tangent of 12 degrees, all 3 of them. So I'm going to just type that in real quick. Sine of 12 degrees, I'm going to hit enter. I'm going to hit the cosine of 12 degrees, and I'm going to hit the tangent of 12 degrees. Now I want you to look at the answers I got for all of those. Are those answers positive values or negative values? It looks like they're all positives. They're not very nice answers. They're ugly looking decimals, but they're all positive. So in quadrant 1, sine is positive, cosine is positive, and tangent is positive. So all 3 of them are positive. All right. Okay, let's go to quadrant 2 and do the same thing. Let's grab an angle from quadrant 2. I'm going to pick, I don't know, let's go with 101. 101 degrees. So if I take 101 degrees and I do exactly what we just did, I find the sine, the cosine, and the tangent of it on my calculator, we can look at their values and see what's positive and what's negative. So let's do that. Let's do the sine of 101, the cosine of 101, and the tangent of 101. Now take a look at these values. Notice that the sine value is positive, but the other two are negative. Cosine and tangent are both negative. So let's summarize that real quick. In this quadrant, sine is positive, cosine is negative, and tangent is negative. Now, I'm gonna just now, instead of doing that for the other two quadrants, I'm just gonna tell you what the results are. If you want to try some other angles in these two quadrants just to verify it, you're welcome to. Pick your favorite angle in quadrant 3, do the sine, cosine, and tangent. Pick your favorite angle in quadrant 4 and do the sine, cosine, and tangent, and see that you'll match up with the results that I get right here. So what will ultimately happen is if you choose an angle in quadrant 3, what you will find is that the sine of that angle comes up to be negative, the cosine comes out to be negative, but the tangent comes out to be positive. All right, that's what happens in quadrant 3. In quadrant 4, what you'll find out is that the sine is negative, the cosine is positive, but the tangent is negative. You guys need to know all of this information. Now, that's a lot to remember when you're dealing with 4 quadrants and 3 different things in each quadrant. There's an acronym, a little trick that will help you with that. All right? If you can remember this acronym right here, ASTC. And what a lot of teachers will call that is all students take calculus. That'll help you remember that. All right? ASTC, and you have to write it in that order. In the quadrant order, so 1, 2, 3, 4, ASTC. Now, what do those letters mean? The A tells us that all 3 of them are positive in that quadrant. The S tells us that only sine is positive in this quadrant, the other ones are negative. The T tells us that tangent's the only one that's positive, the other 2 are negative, and the C tells us that cosine is positive and the other 2 are negative. So that will help you figure out where things are positive and where they're negative very quickly without having to do it on a calculator like we did initially. All right, so now that we've seen ASTC, let me show you how that works. So here are the types of questions you're going to see on your homework tonight that are just going to tie into this ASTC thing. All right, so let me give you a quick example. What if we tell you that we have some angle A? All right. In the homework the other night, it's talked about angle A, and a couple of you are confused by that. We can use letters for angles just like we did in geometry. Usually we use theta in Algebra 2, but you don't have to. All right, so just keep that in mind. You can always use other letters. So we have some angle A, and I'm going to give you some information about angle A, and we're going to make a conclusion about it. We're going to decide what angle or what quadrant angle A is. So angle A is in what quadrant is the question. All right, I'm going to give you a couple of examples of this. So here's example 1. What if I told you that the sine of angle A is smaller than 0 and the cosine of angle A is greater than 0? Oops, forgot my A. Those are your 2 clues. I want to know what quadrant we're in. All right, so we want to find out what quadrant angle A is lying in. All right, we're going to use this new ASTC trick to teach us that. ASTC. So what does this mean right here, that the sine of angle A is smaller than 0? That means your sine value is negative. Where are the quadrants where sine is negative? Well, the A tells us they're all positive, so it's not that one. The S tells us that sine is positive in that quadrant, so it's not that one. The T and the C tell us where tangent and cosine are positive. That means the other ones are all negative in that quadrant. So we have 2 potential answers here. It could possibly be here, and it could possibly be here. But now we need to look at our second clue. Our second clue is that the cosine of this angle has to be bigger than 0. So we're looking for a place in these 2 quadrants where cosine is positive. That's what the C stands for. All right? The C tells us that cosine is positive. So from that, we can conclude that it must be this quadrant right here. So the answer is quadrant 4. I'm going to do another example. New example. So if you need to pause the video and copy it down, same directions though. Angle A is in what quadrant? So this time the information is that the sine of A is bigger than 0 and the tangent of A is bigger than 0. So we have to take both of those things into consideration and draw a conclusion here. So once again, we got our ASTC. So let's start with sine A greater than 0. That means that sine's positive. Where is sine positive? Sine is positive here and here, because all of them are positive here and sine is positive here. So it's definitely not those two quadrants. It's one of these two. Now, this also says that tangent of A is greater than 0. Where is that going to happen? Well, the only thing that's positive in quadrant 2 is sine. Tangent's negative in this quadrant. The only place where tangent's positive in these two possibilities is the A quadrant, where all of them are positive. So our conclusion is that it must be sitting right here in quadrant 1. Going to erase and do one more example. Okay, last example here, and then I'm going to have you guys get your homework done. So this last example, same idea. Angle A is in what quadrant is the question. Let's use the clues to figure out which one of these quadrants this angle must be lying in. This time the information is that the cosine of A is smaller than 0. That means cosine's negative. Where is cosine negative? All right. Well, it's positive here, because all of them are, and it's positive here. So it's definitely not these two. So it's either here or here. The other clue, though, is that sine has to be smaller than 0 as well. So sine has to be negative. The only other place that happens with these two possibilities is right here in the t quadrant, because the t means tangent's positive, the other two are negative. So this is the answer to this one. It's going to be quadrant 3. All right. So now you got your homework. You can get that done. If you got questions, email me. Everybody say hello to Rainbow Dash. All right.